Hello 360. Today we're going to talk about how to change your brain. Well, and before I get into that, I was asked from the last talk I did if I could elaborate a little more on the idea of turning the other cheek. To put it in a nutshell, turning the other cheek means, one, you don't seek personal vengeance, but you still don't have to hang out with the person doing the cheek slapping. And does turning the other cheek mean you don't turn the person over to law enforcement? I think of the very sad and tragic example of churches that knew about someone doing abuse and tried to handle it internally and didn't refer to law enforcement. Well, turning the other cheek means you're not seeking personal vengeance, but is referring someone to law enforcement vengeance? I'd say no. One, it can help protect you, but more than that, it can help the person change and protect other people. The seeking a change of their heart is a good thing. And sometimes that comes through a difficult time, which they would experience being turned over to law enforcement. I think of the clients I used to work with I would often get calls with people saying, I have a court date on Friday, can I get into rehab on Wednesday? And I said, that's nice, but go to court, take your penalty, and then call me. Because I found that the success in rehab of people that took their penalty then came to us was significantly higher than the person that would get into rehab right before their court date, tell the judge, well, you have to waive my penalties, I'm going to rehab. And you could often find a judge that would say, oh, okay, you're going to better your life, go to rehab instead. And the person would stay just long enough to satisfy the judge and be out of there. Sometimes it's the penalties that bring about change. So, yeah, turn the other cheek, don't seek personal vengeance, but that does not preclude staying far away from them and referring to a justice process. Now back to renewing the mind, renewing the brain. I think of the example of a client that I had, and I was talking with him and saying, when you get a paycheck, what's the first thing you think about? He says, when I get a paycheck or when I get money, the very first thing that comes to my mind is crack and prostitutes. Really? Well, he didn't say prostitutes. He used much more colorful language. But that's what he thought about. And then that's what he would go spend his money on, because that was the first thing he would think about. And so how could I work with this gentleman and say, okay, when you get money, how about the first thing you think about becomes paying off my bills, saving, investing, things like that, supporting my family, child support, things like that. But it seems like the brain's going to do what the brain's going to do. And the thought that comes first to my brain, how can I control that? It just kind of bubbles up. And so I look at Romans 12:2. It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And this goes right to the stuff that I've studied, that I got my doctorate in, is that this particular Bible verse was very forward-thinking when it was written at the time. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We know now neuroscientifically that this is very literal. Your mind can be renewed at a very physical level, which would then change what comes to mind. To quote the entire verse, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test, I'll highlight that for a little sideline thing, you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is. God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. To take a little side trail, this whole idea of test, the verse says, test, try out, find evidence. The verse sets the test. The whole idea of blind faith is bogus. So where does blind faith come from? The idea of blind faith usually comes from Hebrews 11:1, where it says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Does this verse say, do not question? No. It says, you are trusting in things you may not have seen. One, in the future, you don't know exactly what the future will hold, but you are trusting that it will be good. And why are you trusting the things you don't see? Because you can have firm conviction in the things you know because you've checked them out. John 20:29 says, blessed are those who have not seen yet believed in Jesus. This says these people have not physically seen and touched Jesus, but they're blessed because they still believe. They can still find out evidence. I think what puts to rest the whole idea of blind faith being the idea of not questioning is Acts 17:11, where Paul says, I really like these Berean people. And you know why I like them so much? Because I went and I told them about Jesus, told them about the gospel, and they said, you know, we're not going to take your word for it. Thank you for telling us this. Now we're going to take what you said, and we're going to go check it out for ourselves and check out evidence to see if what you told us is on par. And Paul says, you guys are cool. He didn't say, how dare you question me? Where is your faith? He didn't say that. He didn't say, God, smite them, and God comes and smack. No, he said, you guys are extra cool because you checked it out for yourself. So just put to rest the whole idea of blind faith. A trust in things you don't know, yeah. Trust in things of the future, trust in God's promises, but why are you trusting? Because you've checked out the things that you can check out. Now back to the first part of the verse, renewing your mind. Here's how it works. It's just very basic neuroscience. Your brain changes throughout life. In the early 20th century, we thought the brain was like a machine. Once you reach a certain age, it is set. This is the way it's going to be, except for the slow decline into old age. That's not true. The brain is not this fixed machine. The brain changes throughout your entire life. It's always growing new neurons. And the existing neurons are strengthening or weakening depending on how you use them. If I can do this with the microphone. So one neuron ends in this little ball, and the next neuron comes and forms this little cup. There's your standard neural connection, and a transmission goes along, gets to this little ball, and jumps across the gap into this little cup, and that's where the neurotransmitters happen, and then it continues along the pathway. And in a simplistic way to present this, so if this is a nerve pathway for, say, chocolate chip cookies. I like chocolate chip cookies. This will be my neuron for chocolate chip cookies. And I think about that, and the more I have chocolate chip cookies, and the more I think about that, this just kind of grows closer and closer and closer and closer until the thought transmits much faster than it normally would for something like kale. And so when I'm hungry and want a snack, the first thing that comes to mind, because I've thought about it so much that the pathway's grown strong, is chocolate chip cookies, and maybe my pathway for kale looks something like that. A lot of other foods might come to mind before kale. Unless you're my son, for some reason he likes to grab the kale at the supermarket and start to eat it. But that's him. And so that's how it works. The idea would be basically what you think about, what you imagine, what you do, can create nerve pathways that are like big 6-lane highways, can carry a lot of traffic and go very fast. And what you don't think about can become these pitted dirt back roads. A common example in the literature is that of sledding on a snow hill. They say there's fresh snow, fresh powder on the hill, and you go out in the morning with your sled, set it on the hill, and you can pretty much pick whatever track you want to slide down. And there might be a few rocks or things, those could be your genetic givens. But for the most part, you can pick what track you want down the slope. If you continue sledding all day, by late afternoon, you've created some very deep grooves. And that is as much as you want to try to make a new pathway, you most likely fall into the deep groove and take the way down that's already been plowed. The brain is like that. When you approach a new task, it's like a fresh snow hill. But as you get older, you've created a lot of deep ruts. And so if you want to do something different, and you try to make a new path, it's pretty easy to fall into the old rut because it's so automatic and so deep. It's this big highway. What you normally think about will be what will come up the fastest. And how you live has a structural and functional effect on your brain. Even in what you notice, depends on how you've trained yourself. There's a phrase in psychology that says, if you are skilled at using a hammer, you begin to see every problem as a nail. I remember my son when he was 2. I saw him running across the living room with a hammer in his hand saying, I found a hammer, now I can bam things. Oh no! It's called Maslow's rule. If you're skilled at using a hammer, you see every problem as a nail. I'll use an example of a neuroscience study they did on basketball players and basketball and throws to the basket. They tested people with no experience, people with a lot of experience watching the game, and then the actual professionals who played the game. Tested them and say, if someone makes a free throw, can you predict if it will go into the basket? They found that those that were very experienced in watching the game, they could predict if the ball was going to go in or not, based on the way the ball was flying, the ball's trajectory. They would look at the ball's trajectory and say, that'll go in, that'll go out, and they were pretty accurate at it, because they watched so many games. But those who actually played the game were different. They could accurately tell whether the ball was going to go in or out, but they didn't look at the way the ball moved. They looked at the person's hand. And so they had the same they were pretty accurate. But they were basing their observations on how the hand moved, not the way the ball went. And so it was the actual experience of being a player that helped them notice something that someone who just watched the game never noticed. It's like that way in life. How you train is what you know. Now I'll use an example relating to forgiveness. A while back, there was a tragic story where there was a mass shooting in an Amish community. And if you read the reports, people were shocked that there was this huge tragedy, yet the whole community came together, and the words they first offered, or when they were interviewed, were words of forgiveness. This person just shot a bunch of people in our community. How could they forgive? And the news reports are written like, these Amish, it's like an alien culture. How could they possibly do this kind of stuff that normal people clearly cannot? But what they neglected to mention is that the Amish have forgiveness exercises starting when they're little. And so as they grow, they keep having these forgiveness exercises. And then when something huge happens, they're able to forgive because they've been trained to do so. And that lets me know that depending on our training, we could also be capable of such feats. And in our brain, you create habits. The psychological term in the literature is called automaticity. It's basically, you do a behavior long enough, it just becomes automatic. For example, driving. You learn to drive, you have to pay attention to everything. But after you've been driving a while, you can pretty much drive home on autopilot. And you only pay attention when something unexpected happens, say like a ball bounces into the road. In that case, then all of a sudden you switch into conscious thought and pay attention again. A lot of what we do in life is like that. Some people describe it as mental butlers. Your brain begins to realize what you do a lot, and so it just moves it into your subconscious to free up resources to do other things, like driving. It's now on autopilot. You can pay attention to things like the radio and hopefully not texting. These kind of habits are not completely out of your control. They're a habit. It's going to be hard to change, but they are controllable to a degree. And so, in life, we begin to make certain things automatic, such as our emotional reactions, the way we respond to certain things. Or if I've thought about a person in anger enough, just seeing them will trigger the first thought, angry. Another phrase in the neuroscience literature is neurons that fire together wire together. And that could be two unrelated things. If they occur at the same time enough, they'll become linked. The whole idea of thinking of someone in anger is a good example of that. Another example would be at our rehabilitation program. During my tenure there, working as a counselor, we went non-smoking. And so all the clients all of a sudden had to go cold turkey. This was a very stressful time for everybody. But then there was a moment where one person made the motion like they were going to pack down a pack of cigarettes, and everyone watching had a craving. Like, ah! Well, because the very ritual of packing down a pack of cigarettes was wired to the craving issues. Or I think of an example where a particular woman talked to me how she could not pray the rosary. And she didn't know why. And then in further exploration and exploring this, and thinking through this topic, she realized, oh yeah, when I was a little girl and my mom needed to punish me, she made me go pray the rosary. And so what happened is the uncomfortable feelings of being punished became wired to the idea of praying the rosary. And so now that she's an adult, those emotions would come back whenever she tried to pray, and she didn't know why. Because it was written deep in her brain. Another really interesting study was that on drug users, that people who have used drugs a long time often get high. The high feeling comes during the ritual preceding using the drug, before the drug is even in their system. What's going on there? Well, the high feelings become wired to the very rituals they do before consuming the drug, so your brain just says, oh, here's your high, before the drug is even in the system. That would be the whole thing of whether they tie the tourniquet or how they roll their cigarette. The rituals bring the high. And that's because it got wired together. Or I go back to the forgiveness example. Someone hurts you, you think about them in anger enough. Anger and that person have become so linked in your brain, that's the first thought that's going to come to mind. So, realize that my brain could be working against me. I have habits I don't want. I have thoughts that come up to my brain. The bad ones are coming up faster than the good ones, and it's written into my head at a very physical level. So how do I change that? Well, the way that you got into that mess is also the way you can get out, because the brain can change. There's hope. One, you need to stop thinking about the thing that comes up so fast. Easier said than done, because it's a 6-lane highway and you have to try to get your car to go to the pitted back road. And what does that mean? It means whenever that thought comes up, stop it and do something else. I think of remember a while back I saw the comic Kathy, and what it had is Kathy said, oh, I think I'll go for a drive, but I won't go by the store. Okay, I'll go by the store, but I won't go in. Okay, I'll go in, but I won't go down the candy aisle. Okay, I'll go down the candy aisle, but I won't stop. And the final frame is 8, 8, 8, 8. The idea is you need to stop the thought on the comic frame 1 And what does that mean? It doesn't mean willpower. The whole idea of must not do this, must not do this, must not do this. When you're saying that, what are you thinking about? The very behavior you don't want to do. And so what's the neural pathway you're strengthening? The one you don't want to do. The whole idea of must not do this works completely against you. What you need to do is to do something completely different. Okay, if Kathy thinks, okay, I'm going to go for a drive and not go by the store. No. How about I go do something completely unrelated? Not even start down that track. Preoccupation and thinking about a behavior, even in the context of how to avoid it, can mean its reinforcement. We jokingly call this addiction replacement therapy. You just go do something else, and it can help a lot. Go do something good for someone else. Exercise. The idea is just to do something different. And then that will be, and what happens is you're taking a different road, and use it or lose it with your brain, the 6-lane highway, when it's not getting the same traffic, goes down to 5, to 4, to 3, to 2, and it shrinks. Those nerve pathways grow weaker, and the little dirt road that you're continually moving yourself to gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But I fail so often. Yeah, you probably will. It's a 6-lane highway versus a little dirt road. What matters is continuing to try. Every act of trying strengthens the weak neural pathway a little more and weakens the strong one just a little more. In the field of addiction, it was often discussed among the professionals who worked with these clients that that on average it takes an addict 7 tries in rehab before it actually sticks. That's the average. And so we'd have addicts come to us, and it seemed like they were a connoisseur of fine rehabs. They had been to so many. And at some point you realize, aren't you just going to get it? Or are you wasting my time? Well, they're not. Because every act of trying, even if there's failure, again, strengthens the different way a little more, until at some point that different way is going to be strong enough so that the break can be more solid. And so there's not as much failure. So even if you try and fail, don't give up, because every failure is a move towards strengthening the way you want to go, as long as you don't give up. Also, imagination. Your brain really doesn't know the difference between imagining something and actually doing it. You can look at the neuroscience literature on that. They really don't know, the brain. And so what you imagine has a really strong effect on whether you're weakening certain pathways or strengthening others. I cite one study where they just told someone, and I can tell all of you, imagine you're in a dark theater, a really dark theater, you just finished watching the movie, you're watching the credits roll, and now it's time to leave. You go to the door, you go to that exit in the back, you throw open the door, and it's a bright noonday. What probably happened is they had a scan on your eyeballs. It's just thinking of that story. When I got to the point where you imagine opening the door and seeing all the sun, your eyes dilated. They went small. Your body reacted as if you had actually just left the dark theater. Imagination's like that. 2 other really fun studies from the Journal of Neurophysiology. One study, they looked at people who played an instrument, playing piano. They told one group, do nothing. That was the control. Told another group, sit on your hands and imagine playing the piano. And the third group said, actually play the piano. After the certain amount of time passed, they tested them again and realized that the people who sat on their hands and imagined playing the piano and those that actually played the piano improved the same. And in a crazy study by Yu and Cole, in the same journal, they studied exercise. They had their control, and then a different group, they said, do nothing, sit on your couch, and imagine exercising. And then the third group, they said, okay, you actually exercise. Now, the imagining and the doing it for real didn't improve the same, unfortunately. But those that just imagined exercise improved, I think it was around 22%, around 17% over those that did nothing at all. Just imagining exercise brought some improvement. Not as much improvement as the real exercises, but there was some, which is frankly amazing that there was any. Imagination is powerful. So when you are alone with your thoughts and you're thinking of things, am I thinking of, oh, how I want to punch that coworker that made me mad? Or are you thinking different thoughts? And basically what you think about is what you are training yourself to do and training yourself into the kind of person you'll become. What are you thinking about? And then begin to wire good feelings to doing good things. For example, acts of service. Don't just rely on, say, I'm going to go out and serve in a soup kitchen and think that that will be really transformative. Because guess what? With the first time I worked at the rehab center, my very first day, the first person to see me reacted, "Who the bleep are you?" Oh, yeah, I feel the welcome. But I stuck around. And the clients I would work with, or in the situation of a soup kitchen, clients could often be rude, mean, ungrateful. And the person who came to do the serving often would not leave with warm, fuzzy feelings. They would leave feeling, ugh, that was unpleasant. But here's the thing. If you only help those that are grateful, you're probably missing out on helping the people that need help the most. And so the idea is to keep these people who have had a emotional experience that may not be the warm, fuzzy one they wanted, to keep at helping is one, if you're going to go out and do a type of service somewhere, do it with people you like. Take a group, don't go on your own. So the good feelings can be present in the people you're working with. And then have debriefing to talk through these things and set an unpleasant experience in a much wider vision that can be properly emotionally motivating to continue at doing the work. No idea if you can make your emotions work for you by wiring the good ones into doing the things that you should be doing instead of the things you shouldn't. Or for my case, say, avoiding the cookies and eating more kale. And I said, ultimately, keep trying. Or with forgiveness, referring back to the last talk, say, okay, that person and anger have become so deeply wired that I just can't think of them and not be so angry. Have I really forgiven them? Well, in this case, forgiveness is a process. To think back, okay, I know it's linked deeply. How do I change this? Well, I need to start thinking about them in a different way, so maybe I can do something nice for them, if it's not going to be a situation where you're going to put yourself at risk. Or maybe I can start praying for them. The Bible says pray for your enemies. That's also going to be beneficial to you because it can begin to wire different feelings to the way you think about them. So that the anger doesn't become an anchor on you. And that person who hurt you doesn't keep hurting you forever into the future. You got to go that process of trying to think of different things so that the emotions and them are not linked so deeply. And to keep trying at it until one day you find, I'm not so peeved at them anymore. I can walk and do other things. So in this case, referring to last week, forgiveness is a process. It's an initial thing where you're not going to take immediate vengeance. And then it's a process of being able to rework your emotions. Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's very literal. It's a process that's done in community. That's why I encourage find a good church group and good friends who can help you think the good things that you want to think and not the things you shouldn't. For example, when we work with rehab clients, would have them go to church. They were required. And a big purpose for that was to find a new social group that could encourage a different way of thinking, being, and knowing, helping them rewire their brain by virtue of the social environment that they were in. And to keep trying. And yes, no matter how old you are, your brain can change, and there is hope that anyone can live into Romans 12:2 and find their mind transformed. Dear Lord, I just pray for all of us that we together can take the steps that we need to move our brains in a way that'll be beneficial and not harmful, away from the things we want to get away from and toward the things that are good. Be with us, right? This I pray in Christ's name.